Good day, everyone. I am Michael, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is HIPAA changes for 2024 and beyond. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Mark R. Prengelman. Mark holds bachelor and master degrees in philosophy from Emory University and a Juris Doctorate from University of Kentucky. Mark is a frequent continuing education presenter, including national organizations nationwide. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Michael, for that excellent introduction, just as I wrote it. It's a pleasure to be here with conference panel today. So we have a 60-minute webinar that I think you'll find interesting and informative, and it'll be a good worthwhile use of our time today. Today's topic is HIPAA changes for 2024 and beyond. So let's move forward, please. I hold bachelor's and master's degrees in philosophy from Emory University, my law degree from the University of Kentucky College of Law. I served out a successful 20-year career with state government in Kentucky. I've been in private practice since 2012. I've presented continuing education for over 50 national and state organizations and private companies, such as conference panel. We want to cover HIPAA changes for 2024 and beyond with an introduction to federal regulatory process notice and comment rulemaking, an overview of the privacy rule changes for 2023. We will also cover cybersecurity, why it's more important now, and lessons learned from the most recent cyber attack investigation, and a conclusion with avoiding risk and liability with best practices to anticipate HIPAA changes for 2024. I do think it's important to give the disclaimers for the content of this program so that we know we're all on the same page together about what this does and does not cover. This does provide a broad overview of anticipated proposed HIPAA changes for 2024. Introduction to HIPAA changes for 2024. We start with this year's 2023 rule changes. This was the biggest change in the proposed rules. So why 2023 to start with focusing on 2024? The proposed amended HIPAA rule prohibits the use and disclosure of this information for certain criminal, civil, and administrative investigations and proceedings. So after the Supreme Court officially published the Dobbs case, they issued existing guidance, the feds through the Health and Human Services Department. So the first guidance document under HIPAA identified how HIPAA currently applies to the privacy of reproductive health information. Why guidance is not enough? The second guidance document clarified that HIPAA does not apply to health information on consumer devices. Introduction to federal regulatory process notice and comment rulemaking. Rulemaking is the policy-making process for executive and independent agencies of the federal government, analogous to state government. So let's get into the meat of HIPAA privacy and security, the changes for 2024 and beyond. What's the difference now between security and privacy? Training your employees, what is really required coming for 2024? Healthcare is the most vulnerable to cyber hackers. Training your employees, what's really required for 2024 and beyond? Employee and worker education are critical. This must include all employees and volunteers at every level. So the facility can be liable, your healthcare organization can be liable for breaches of all of its workers, not just covered entities, not just healthcare practitioners. Minimal standards to identify signs of attack or phishing. You need to cover correctly reporting the incident if you do see signs of attack or phishing, and take steps to safeguard against those threats. What about cybersecurity itself, and do we have best practices because it's more important now than ever? New changes and updated standards are now grounds for government enforcement. Self-audits, remediation, and implementation of improvements. As stated above, you need to complete a self-audit for the reasons stated. Use of compliance automation software. Best practices for responding to a security incident in 2024 and beyond. Monitor the list in order to gauge the current state of cyber attacks and data breaches. You will see a summary of what's under investigation. So best practices in 2024 for responding to a security incident is to comply with industry standard incident response points. First of all, we got to talk with prevention. Analyze once detected, watch for the attack and breach indicators, If a possible breach is detected, then review all IT devices and resecure them. So again, more best practices for responding to a security incident. Eradicate the breach by removing malware, by resetting passwords, and completing all necessary software and security updates. Restore your systems using the most recent backup if necessary, and resume business as usual. This is something that is not very often done. A post-incident review. There are some lessons learned from the most recent cyber attack investigation. So included lessons are that the investigation showed there were evidence of potential failures to determine risks and vulnerabilities. So the coming trend for 2024 that is not yet required, but it's an interesting one. This applies to your own human resources departments and employees, workers, and volunteers. Cybersecurity includes the privacy rule for covered entities that is required to have and apply appropriate sanctions against members of its workforce. So in conclusion, we have summary and tips for avoiding liability and risk with these coming changes. And for individual healthcare practitioners, train all of your staff and retrain them when HIPAA changes. So know if you are a healthcare facility, know your HIPAA confidentiality and coming changes, or hire someone who does. Have we covered it all? An introduction to federal regulatory process of notice and comment rulemaking, cybersecurity, how it's more important now than ever. We have other topics to be scheduled. Final remarks are to be aware of the 2023 HIPAA changes that could be issued by the end of the year, but probably will bleed over into 2024. Maintain best practices and be educated and stay up to date on all of the coming changes for HIPAA that are coming down the pike. This has been a great and worthwhile use of our time. I've enjoyed being a presenter for you. This will be my last webinar for 2023, and look for more conference panel webinars in the future.
Thank you, Mark. So that does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.